Life is hard. It comes at you fast, doesn't it? So is being an entrepreneur. You see people with the cars, the boats, the homes, and the travel. What you don't see is how many times they've failed, how hard they work, and how often they bust their butts. This is the Get Real Podcast. Get Real Podcast. We have a lot going on. We talk about life, mental health, business, ups and downs, and we have on some of the most exclusive entrepreneurs in the business world. People that have done it. No BS, no pump you up mentality, just keeping it real and raw. Let's do this. This is Get Real, and this is your host, Mark Lyford.
So today on the Get Real, we have Josh Ewin. Josh has been an entrepreneur now for many years, and just as a precursor to this, I've known Josh for many, many years now. So welcome, Josh. How you doing, mate?
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Good. I'm glad you agreed to come on this new podcast, mate. It means a lot to me. It really does. So.
Mark, I didn't agree. I actually asked to come on and chat with you.
You did actually, yeah. That's great. I forgot that. I would normally just ask to tell you about yourself, but what I want to do, and particularly on this, is that I want to say to the audience that Josh here was my very first employee back in the day. This would be 98, 99. So this is how far we go back. I can't even remember how we got in touch, but I put an advert somewhere wanting web designers to help me develop the business. You started as part-time. You were based at Ohio State at the time. And then suddenly, in addition to being my guy for web design, you started recruiting other people out of Ohio State, and it kind of ended up being the hub for what we were doing then was based out of Columbus, Ohio. It was, my first ever guy that I ever hired all those years ago. So 23 years, 24 years. Mind blowing. So that's how we met, and that's how long we've known each other, and we've stayed in touch ever since. So, just say a little bit about tell people what you've been doing, who is Josh Ewin, and then we'll go with some questions and get into it.
All right. You want the long version or the short version?
Well, whatever feels. Let's go with the long.
All right. Well, some context. So, yeah, we met 23-ish years ago when I was a student at Ohio State University. Go Bucks. You were actually, I think, my first mentor, actually, as an entrepreneur, in the business sense. So not only did, I work for you and help you build, Lyford initially, but we were business partners then. We both have websites and, some nice recurring revenue. And that was my real first taste. I had a web dev business before you and I met, but that was my real first taste at owning and running a business. And I got hooked. So I'm sure we'll get into the details about what's happened over the past 24 years. But right now, I am COO of Helios Payments, which is a high-risk payment processing company based here in Maryland in the USA. And I'm also a soccer coach, father, and a brewer.
Brewer as well. We'll talk about that in a little while because that's relevant to the questions I'm going to ask you. It wasn't just back then. It wasn't really ever like boss hierarchy. It was we were all working together, and I think that's important. And like you said, you had your own sites as well as part of it, which was your own separate income in addition to working, and that's how we rolled. And we had, to say the least, we had some pretty great times and we had some pretty low times. I remember one of those particular low times in you and others helping me move out of a office in Boca Raton when things were going very badly wrong. But actually, what that did is that got you down to Florida for how many years were you down in Florida?
So we moved down for that. My then fiance and I, we were down there 8 years or something. Yeah.
It's good times, reminiscing. So let's get into it. So you've already said, answered one of my questions, which is, have you ever had a mentor? I don't necessarily view me as a mentor to you, but if you do, then I guess that's a compliment and I should accept it. But certainly, you know, from speaking, my opinion of mentors, they're hard to find. It's funny, in another podcast that I did a few days ago, we were talking about mentors, and Chris, who I was doing the podcast with, who's another friend of mine, he was saying of his experience about paid mentors. And I said that the idea of paying a mentor doesn't sit right with me. I think a mentor is someone that should work with you, not necessarily just for what they can give for you, to you and help you with. There's always got to be a win-win there. But the idea of actually paying for mentorship, doesn't really sit very well with me. I think now the other side of that is that I've only ever really had one business mentor in my life, Harry, who you know about. And I haven't had a mentor since 20 plus years, 23 years now. And I've never found anyone. I've had very good advisors in their own field. I can think of a guy called Mark, who's a very successful Forex and stock trader in Australia. He's helped me out a great deal in the specific ways and specific fields. But the idea of having a mentor that you pay, I don't know what you think, but I've never really thought of doing that. It didn't right, but at the same time, I've never actually found somebody else, probably because I'm old now and any mentors that I would have known are not around. But what's your thoughts on that? Have you ever had any other mentors? What's your thoughts on the paying for mentors?
Yeah, no. I would do it. Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, that give and take, having a reciprocal relationship is absolutely necessary. If I was a young entrepreneur, I mean, that could be enticing, right? You have no idea when you start out, you know, your very first business. You have no idea as far as direction, what to focus on, priorities, any of that. So I can see how paying for a mentor could be enticing, but I don't think it's
yeah, I mean, it's like my vision for Real Entrepreneur. Over time, that will ultimately have an inbuilt mentor related focus to it, and at some point people will pay a nominal monthly membership. This is not a sales promo for what I'm planning to do with it. But when I talk about like some of the fees and figures I hear about mentorship, you know, you're talking serious amounts of money. And I think what I want to do is for young people, I mean, there's a lot more resources out there now about how to set up businesses. But there's a lot of false information out there, which is the whole ethos of Real Entrepreneur. And the key word is real. And being part of the Real Entrepreneur community for anybody at any stage of setting up a business, expanding their business, there will be an element of mentorship in there, but that's in a loose way that everybody will help each other and there'll be experts in their field. That's fine. But what I'm talking about is, yeah, I want $500 or $1,000 or $2,000 a month to mentor you. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. It doesn't sit right. And for me, you've always got to think what's in it for the mentor. It could be exposure when you become successful, that you can be credited as a mentor of them. Again, you know, I wouldn't class him as a mentor. I'd class him as a long-term friend as long as I've known you. Brad Goss, who in specific ways has helped me massively when I started all over again in 2009. Not a mentor per se, but somebody that's advised and helped, and somebody I go to for, certainly with Brad, thinking out of the box and that stuff. Have you had any mentors that you would say recently or in the last, or advisors, people like that have helped you in specific things?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say as far as mentors go, maybe one other. It was actually my current business partner, our CEO, Jason. At times in the past, absolutely. I think he's a great entrepreneur. I think he's very driven and very sharp. So we've definitely had that kind of a relationship in the past. As far as specific, people that have helped me in areas in the past, yeah. I have a loose brain trust, right? So I have someone for money and finances. I have someone for football coaching. I have someone for brewing. So different aspects of my life, I do have advisors that I lean on. Absolutely.
Yeah, and they're important. Specific advisors for different areas of your life. So moving on from that, then you've mentioned football coaching. I already know the answer to this, I think, but I'll ask it anyway because it's one of the questions I like to ask in these podcasts of guests. So if money wasn't a factor, what would you do with your life?
It wouldn't change that much.
And isn't that interesting that that's the ultimate idea of success? Because one of the other questions I like to ask people is, what does success mean to you? And I've said before, the idea that like if people won the lottery tomorrow, you would never have to work, and people think they would just go and buy a big house and then go and sit on the beach all day. That gets boring fast, especially people like us. I've lived the island life and I was still working as hard on the island when I didn't necessarily need to, because life gets boring doing nothing and sitting on beaches. It's not that. And I've said in the past, the ultimate success is to be living the life now that if money wasn't an object, like you just said, you wouldn't change it that much. Yeah, things may be a little bit easier and maybe you wouldn't have to do some things you do in a day or a week, but generally you wouldn't change that much. And actually, in a weird way, that is the definition of success. That's what we're all working towards to achieve. So then if you reverse that and you say, well, actually, if you're not in that position where money is no object, what is the life that you realistically are striving to achieve? And if you can paint that picture of your life and then say, okay, well, how can I be living some resemblance of that life now while I'm on that journey? Because to me, money isn't about, the saying, I've been rich, I've been poor, rich is better. Money is not. The idea that money doesn't make you happy is true to a degree based on my own experience. But it makes life a hell of a lot easier. And what money is money's a tool. We know it's a tool to do things. But for me, it buys that freedom of being able to live experiences and do things you want to do. It's not about driving the flash cars and the watches, and it's like the intro of this podcast says. If you scroll through somebody's social media, I can do it on Facebook all the time. If you actually took at face value what post you're seeing, you're thinking, I'm doing terrible. All these people are traveling here, doing that, driving that. But the trouble with social media is most people only ever post the good parts.
Yeah.
And if you can live, and what you're doing, I mean, we've had conversations before, prior to this, that, your passion is football coaching. So I know from our previous conversations, you are working on your business to be able to have that business running to where you can not step back, but not have to be working every day, and then ultimately do your football coaching, which is ultimately your passion. The great thing is you're doing the football coaching already. I know you are now officially a paid football coach. And when we're talking about football, let's get it right, okay? There's some American and UK thing going on here. when we're talking about it, we're actually talking about soccer, folks. The original football, not your football where people handle the ball all the time.
This is true.
Seriously, that's what you're doing. You wouldn't change much about your life. That is amazing. How many people can really say that honestly? Now, I can't say that honestly. What I am working on, I wouldn't change that much. I wouldn't be doing some of the things that I do in a day because they bore me thoroughly, but that will change over time. I'm not actually, if I'm being real, I'm not able to say I wouldn't change that much. I would change my location. I'm hoping to be at least part of the time based back in the Caribbean. I would have more of a team around me. Yes, I've got people and resources that I can go to, but I haven't got like full-time team here yet. It's just the way it is, and I miss having that team. So I can't honestly say that. But it wouldn't take too much to be a reality, and that's the reality of it. So the fact that you wouldn't change much is amazing, mate.
Yeah, why would I? I'm very happy. I'm fortunate to have some great people around me to help support that. Yeah, if money were no object, things would be easier. There would absolutely be more travel, and the stuff I do now, it would just be done a shit ton bigger. And cars, I would want cars.
I've never really been a car guy. I've had some nice cars in my past in the back of the day. I will at some point own an Aston Martin, but that's pretty much as far as my car thing ever goes. And
I remember the M5. The M5 was fun. And the Lotus.
The Lotus, the bean can that I drove a few times and realised it was way too difficult to get in and out of, and my wife ended up driving it all. Yeah, but again, it is what it is. I actually, when I look back at the days and we experienced some amazing things together as a team, it's funny because never ever do I look back at the times then and think, oh, I had that much money in the bank or whatever. It's always the experiences that not having to worry about money bought us collectively. We had some times in Las Vegas that I will always remember. We had some great times, and it's that experience that financial freedom buys you, and it is the freedom to do things that so yeah. Okay, so how have you found working with business partners? Business partners for me, I've always been, for some context, I've always found it a little bit difficult. I think it's my personality type. I've sometimes struggled with having business partners. I have 3 business partners on OG Crypto now. It's great though because we've known each other for many years. We've all got our own thing that we're good at doing, and it's working great, and we've got some exciting stuff coming out. But I would never personally rush to do business partnerships, too many, because it's different between collaborations and working as with different companies on things. I'm talking about an actual partnership, and I've in the past struggled with business partnerships. Now I know you've got a business partner for Helios. How have you found working with business partners in the past and now?
Sure. So in my career, I've had maybe 7 different businesses, and 3 separate businesses I had partners in. You were one of them. I've been very, very fortunate with my business relationships, my business partnerships, and really not had any kind of issues, conflicts, serious disagreements that were, deal breakers. And I think having a business partner can be a really positive thing. Like I said, I've been very lucky to have some great business partners that were driven, that were, easy to get along with. But I've absolutely seen the flip side in my clients, folks I know having business partnerships and, dramatically and, catastrophically. So, that can happen, but I think it's like any other partnership, like marriage, for instance. There has to be a give and take, just like we were talking with the mentorship. It has to be, everyone has to eat, so to speak. Everyone has to benefit from the relationship. And I think, in hindsight, my partnerships, if there was anything I would have changed, it would be to have given more to my business partners.
That's interesting and very honest and real. Yeah. You spoke about marriages. It's a good analogy. You were, yeah, because of the nature of it is a friendship. This particular episode, folks, is not necessarily what it will always be, but it's because we've known each other so long, and we are friends as well. But the marriage analogy is a good one, and still the hottest day of my life I have ever experienced was at your wedding off an island of Georgia.
Yeah.
You insisted I wore the suit provided, which was the hottest
Tux and tails. Yeah.
in 100-degree heat. And I can remember going into the restrooms, toilets for the UK listeners and viewers, and stripping down to my boxer shorts because I was that hot at your wedding. It turned lovely at night. It was a lovely occasion. It got a little bit cooler at night, but the hottest day I've ever had in my life. And then a couple of weeks later, you came to my wedding in the UK. But it's funny that one of the things that I also remember about your wedding, coming back to this partnerships thing, and I hope you won't mind me saying this. I've said this. I don't know if I said it in my book, but whatever. It's about being real. Another guy we used to work with called Gabe, he and I were with you before your ceremony, and I can remember, I can't remember if it was you or Gabe or both of you or whatever, but there was a general consensus and a question that felt like needed to be asked of me, who was due to get married in a few weeks' time, along the lines of, you sure you're doing the right thing? And it's funny because at the time, 24, 25, whatever I was, already had my son James. And yeah, of course I'm doing the right thing. Actually, looking back with hindsight, I wasn't doing the right thing. 7 years on, it went to prove it. But bringing that to back to the partnerships thing, there can be often a mismatch, and it's got to be an equal thing. On a two-way partnership, it's definitely got to be equal. I think partnerships go wrong when there's either a difference in power of each, or skills, and what they bring to the table. And I think that's where things can go wrong on two ways. Three-way partnerships can get get complicated. I'm in a four-way partnership with OG now, and it's good because we all know what we're doing, and we've all got different skills. And I bring to it my experience of crypto for 10 years. Other guys, Matt's marketing in JVs, and John is our coder, and the other Mark is a great copywriter, web designer, what have you. And it works as a thing. And we're launching our first project in September, and it's exciting. But you got to be careful, I think we're both saying, on partnerships. The next question, mate, is if you were starting over again and all you had was a roof over your head, a laptop or a computer and a mobile phone, knowing everything you know, what would you do? What would you start again with? If you had to start again for some catastrophic reason, everything stopped. Yeah, you're not homeless. You've got a house, and all you've got resources wise is a laptop and a mobile phone. What would you do?
For a business, for work, you mean?
Yeah.
That's tough. I honestly don't know. If I had to do it all over again, Any funding, investment, money?
Say you got 10,000. Say your good wife is paying the bills for 6 or 12 months or whatever, and you've got 5-10 grand.
Right.
I ask this question is because I want it to inspire people who are listening to think there'll be people listening to this that are at a situation where, and I was in this situation in 2009. I got a roof on my head. I was living back at my parents' at the age of 32. And all I'd got is a mobile phone, somewhere to live, I could eat, and a laptop. That's all I had. Now, Brad Goss, who I mentioned before, said, well, you got to look at the resources you've got. And I had a Mac. I'm a Mac fanboy, and I'd got GarageBand. And at the time, there was a very popular thing called the Warrior Forum. And he said, GarageBand, you can make royalty-free music tracks. You can go and create the tracks yourself and put them out there at $7-9 a pop and go and sell some. And that was my very first internet marketing related product. I put 30 music tracks that I created myself using GarageBand, and I went on over to sell $4,000 worth of those music tracks on a Warrior Forum, and that's how I started back. Still credit Brad now with that amazing idea. I was one of the very first to put royalty-free music tracks into that space. And that was, I'm lucky enough to have a decent laptop, and that's how I made money out of nothing. And that's one of the reasons I ask people. You know, everybody's answer is going to be different, but I guess more of the thing was, what industry would you still focus on? The credit card processing? Would you?
So I think there are two answers. So the first is the pragmatic one. I would put my time, energy, and everything that I had into a business that had some residual or recurring income. So I've had businesses in the past. I had a web development company. So in that business model, you know, you're invoicing out $5,000, whatever, to the client for a piece of work, right? Once that work's done, the work is just done. They're off your P&L. You got to find more work. I've also had businesses. I had a web hosting company for a number of years where you've got, you know, X amount of clients today, and next month there's some attrition, but you still have those clients. And it's a beautiful business model. The reason I would focus on that is that you can piss off to Europe or go on vacation, whatever, and the revenue is still there. And it's a hell of a lot easier to grow because you've got that residual coming in. So instead of just trying to replace the revenue you lost last month, you're adding to it every month. So that's the first answer. Second answer, I wouldn't change a thing. I'd be focused on the stuff I'm doing now. I'd be brewing beer, coaching football. Yeah,
that's the thing about it. And the thing with the recurring income, you and I back then had the taste of what recurring was like. As I broke before, at the height of Lyford Holdings, the company was bringing in £150,000 a month because the dollar rate at the time, whatever, was great. In fact, the dollar rate's a lot better now if you're in that situation. But anyway, it was like $1.40 at the time. And that recurring income is gold. And that's something when I had a bit of a false start, 2010, 2011, I got shut down by PayPal on a bunch of recurring. I'll never put recurring through PayPal ever again. And I built up to about $15,000 a month recurring, and it got shut down in a heartbeat. And it's the hardest thing getting clients back. The web hosting is interesting because, like you say, it's recurring. Nothing beats that feeling. Now, recurring is harder initially to get going, but once you get going, like you said, it's automatic relatively. Yes, you've got some churn rate on anything you do. Funny, I was speaking to somebody else yesterday that I hope to get as a guest, one of the smartest marketers I know, a guy called Simon Hodgkinson from Promote Labs. And we were talking about recurring and stuff, and he had some ideas on something I'm working with. Where am I going with that? In that we've experienced recurring. I haven't cracked recurring yet back as I would want to. I've got plans to. But yeah, if you can sell a good value product or service on a recurring, it's so much easier than that one-time hit. And as long as the product or service is good enough, people will keep coming back. In fact, you mentioned web hosting. One of the ideas I've got when I finally launched the Real Entrepreneur membership is that I will offer web hosting and domain names as part of the membership. One, from a business point of view, it makes it sticky. It's a reason. If you were having some hard times, not that the membership's going to be very much at all, but if you were having hard times, right, what can I cut down on? So from a pure business point of view, there's a sticky element to it there. But the other element is I want to be able to offer somebody that is starting up. They don't have to go here and there for web hosting and domain names and this, and even some other services I'm considering. So people listening to this, what Josh has said is great. Focus on recurring if you can. And there's no business. Another guy, a guy called Neil Stafford here in the UK up north, he is the membership master. Somebody else I hope to get on Get Real at some point. There's not a single business or a client that he has ever come across that he couldn't find a way of building recurring income into their business. Even a radio DJ that did some marketing stuff part-time. I hope he won't mind me saying this. I can cut it out if he does, but I'm sure he won't. A national radio DJ that he works with, has been working with for years, syndicated content and provided updates to other radio stations on a recurring basis. I can't remember what the content was, but even that, there's nothing he hasn't thought of. And so yeah, recurring is the key if you can get into it. And there's no reason why you can't, it's that feeling of knowing that you've got money coming in every day, every week, every month is from a stress point of view, great. And
yeah, absolutely.
It's a golden feeling. It really is. There was a question I was going to ask you that came up that I completely forgot. I need to start writing notes when these things come into my mind, but it'll probably come back to me. So yeah, interesting question. You wouldn't really change much, but you would do recurring. And it's funny, when I asked this question, actually I was thinking about, I haven't done many of these yet, but Chris, who I interviewed a few days ago, he also said his answer was a recurring newsletter. Interesting. It's interesting.
And that's after, 20 some odd years of being a business owner. Yeah, as a, budding entrepreneur, a new entrepreneur, the first, when I first started my company back with you, when I first incorporated, I was focused on the name of the company and stuff that's just not important at all, right? So viewers take that advice, really take it to heart as far as recurring income, because that can really help you grow a business faster, make a more secure business. It's absolutely important, paramount.
Cool. All right, so let's move on and ask some other random questions. I'm going to go a bit deep with some others, if that's all right, because that's what we're trying to do here. So, where's your favorite place in the world, mate?
My favorite? I'm here.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. There are many places I love, but especially this one, my home. I've been here a very long time. I love my community. I love where I am. I love the space that I live in. So yeah, that's my answer.
Cool. Very cool. But hopefully we'll see each other. We haven't met face. Last time we met each other was 20 plus years ago in Boca Raton.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get to meet each other down in the Bahamas at some point again. Okay. Next thing then is irrelevant, because where would you live in the world if you could? We already know the answer there, which is a great thing to say, fulfilling. So let's talk a little bit about mental health. Again, not something for new listeners and viewers of this, not something you'll normally get on an entrepreneur or business-based podcast, but something that's very close to me, something I'm very passionate about talking, because men specifically don't talk about it enough. So mental health and stress. So I think being an entrepreneur can be one of the most challenging things to people's mental health. It can be very lonely at some points, can be extremely stressful, and the highs and the lows are a lot more pronounced than, compared to working at a normal job. I'm not saying normal, regular 9 to 5 or whatever people work these days is not stressful. What's been your experience of mental health, and how have you dealt with it, and how have you dealt with stress?
Sure. So you're absolutely right. The highs and the lows are more pronounced as a business owner. I don't have, aside from when I was young growing up, much context outside of entrepreneurship, because that's pretty much all I've done since I was like 19.
New visitor.
Sorry, it's my website.
Right.
So I've definitely had some challenges at different points in my past, and I'm a firm believer in therapy. And I think finding the right therapist can really help set you straight. And listen, for everyone, therapy isn't just for people with issues. Therapy isn't just for people that are depressed or have some sort of mental disorder. Healthy people, mentally healthy, physically healthy people go to therapists so they can stay physically and mentally healthy. So I think that's really important to say that, just because there is a stigma that mental health, if you need mental health, then there is something dysfunctional, something invalid about you as a person. And that's absolutely not the case. I actually had a friend recently, actually my best friend, took his own life just a couple months ago. And we knew he was having issues. We knew he was having some big issues, but we didn't know exactly how severe they were. So I really wish that he had found the right therapist for him, and things have ended up differently. But I think it's very important to take care of your mental health. And it's not just therapy. It's also educating yourself. It's also your physical health. So exercise has a tremendous impact on the mind. And I think all those things, especially as an entrepreneur, you need to guard your mental health and do things to help support yourself, even if it means, a little less time in the office, taking that time to have a healthy sleep schedule, to have a healthy diet, to work out, to have, healthy social interaction. All that stuff helps to support you. So when you get back in the office, you're ready to kick ass.
I agree. Again, because of our relationship, I shared that with you. We spoke when your best friend took his own life, quite a lot, actually. And what can you say? It's terrible. Over here in the UK, 25 people a week take their own lives. It's the size of Florida. This is why it's a passion of mine. I've been through my own dark times. 2017, didn't even know I was suicidal, and it's tough. And certainly for me, speaking to people is the best things ever. I've had some therapy in the past. Cognitive behavior worked well for me. Exercise, it's the best thing you can do. I'm old enough now where I've vowed when I hit 40 I'd never go in a gym again, because it bores me thoroughly. There's a new gym opening up down the road that Gabby is going to be joining, and you're not going to see me there. I can't think of anything worse. Well, why not? Doesn't bother. I'm not interested. What I like doing, because I actually enjoy doing it, we have 7 dogs here, and 3 of them on a daily basis. So I'm in charge of walking, and that's what I like. Try and do 10,000 steps. It's not particularly going. I'm not hitting 10,000 a day. They are increasing. Certainly the summer and the weather helps. I've always struggled since the age of 21 with diet and weight. It's the one thing that I haven't, if I'm honest, can say I've succeeded with. Unfortunately, when I get stressed or depressed, I eat. I wish I was the other way where I didn't eat, because then I'd be banging and I'd be 6-packed up. But I have still struggled with it. And but at the same time, I also know myself now, and I know that the idea of going to the gym not happening. So do the steps and watch what you eat. But certainly when I go out to walk my dogs in an evening, it helps me massively. I can clear my mind, but then also sometimes I'll come back with some great ideas, some clear thinking. Definitely the best thing. So for me, talking to people, dealing with stress, talking to people. A lot of people for me say I'm one of the calmest people they know. In certain circumstances that come up, a lot of people say they would get stressed about, and it doesn't affect me. I think that's partly because my resilience levels are so high after everything I have experienced. But I also run the little program in my mind: is this going to affect me tomorrow? Is it going to affect me next week, next month, next year? And if the answer to the first tomorrow, week, or month is no, it's not going to affect you, don't bother about it, it'll sort itself out. Could it affect me next year? If the answer is potentially yes, yeah, you need to put some time to it. And that's how I try and categorize things personally. And I know you've had stressful times, and there's 2 types of stress, isn't there? There's the stress that you are in control of, or you potentially could be in control of the outcome. And then there's other things like, sadly, your friend taking his own life. That's stress and a whole load of other emotions that ultimately you are not in any way, shape, in control of, and that then needs a different type of response. And that's the way it is, you know. So yeah, it's as I say, people don't talk about it enough, and part of this Get Real is to get real about talking about this stuff, because I think the more people do, certainly when I've talked about mental health in the past, any posts on social media I've done, I don't get that much interaction publicly. But you would be amazed at the amount of people that sometimes reach out to me privately and thank me or talk to me. Yeah. That fundamentally is the problem.
That is the problem. And, you know, the funny thing is that, you know, you mentioned CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and I absolutely agree. I'm a firm believer in that as well. Everyone has their own worldview and view of themselves, and everyone's worldview and view of themselves is skewed. You walk around, you don't realize it, but, you know, prejudices, you know, inclinations that you have, you're not even aware of, and that impacts how you view the world, how you react to the world, things you do in life. So I think having, you know, things like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, helps to take those thoughts that are automatic and you're just, you know, inclined to do, and put them into a logical framework where you could say, you know, that's not exactly how it really is. And moving forward from that, you've got a more clear view of the world that gives you, you know, a better path to, you know, live your life and do the stuff you need to do and be happy.
Definitely, mate. So let's move on. If you could recommend one book for somebody to read, an entrepreneur, business person, we're starting out, whatever stage they're at, what would be the book? Here's the big one. Now, if it can't just be one book, go on, you can do 2 or 3.
2 or 3. That's really tough. That's really tough because different
types of things, yeah.
Yeah, well, and different people need different stuff at different times, you know, points in their career. One of the first books for me, and this isn't something I've read for probably 20 years, is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits. It was a great book, actually given me by my father-in-law, and I think that started me down the path of reading, similar stuff. So that would probably be one. I'm not a huge Grant Cardone fan, but I think he gets something right in this. And I know we spoke about this book before, and that's the 10X rule. I think that's what it's called, 10X rule. I think what I like about that particular book is that there's no fluff, there's no magic, there's no, ethereal formula that you have to wish upon a star or something. He says you got to fucking work.
I agree.
You got to put the time in, and it's not easy. And so I think that would be a great read for anyone, any entrepreneur, regardless of whether they're starting out or they've been in it 20 years. So there were a couple. There are many others.
You mentioned a book to me when we were speaking in the past about the system you follow in your business. Just tell people what.
Absolutely. So the author's name is Gino Wickman. The book is called Traction, and the system is called EOS. It's the Entrepreneurial Operating System. We implemented this maybe 5 years ago with Helios Payments, and it's the framework for how we run the business. So there are quarterly goals and weekly meetings to check in on how you're progressing towards those goals. It's a great system. It's a quick read. I would absolutely recommend it. It's Traction by Gino Wickman.
Cool, man. If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would you do? What would you say to yourself?
One, dude.
The main thing that comes out. So I'll give you an example while you perhaps think about that. For me, it couldn't be one. It would have to be a paragraph, and it would be people. Don't kid yourself that people treat you the way you would treat others. People's own ethics and morals in deals and in business are not the same as yours. That would be a big thing. And I would also say that my view of money and what success meant back then is very different to what it is now.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say if there was just one piece of advice I could give to my young self, have fun. That would be it. And the work ethic was already there. The drive was already there. Putting the time in was already there. What wasn't there was having fun and understanding that the having fun part helps make all the other stuff flourish even more. If you can have fun doing what you're doing, you're going to be so much better at what you do.
Okay, so what does the future hold for you, business-wise?
Business-wise, I've had this vision in my head for a number of years. It's come and gone at various points, but it's always kind of the same thing, and that is to be enjoying what I do and having several businesses. And we're headed that direction. Right now there's Helios Payments, perhaps a brewery starting in the next year or so. So it would be number two, and who knows what happens with the coaching, but that's the direction I'm headed, is to have a couple of businesses, and hopefully by the time my kids are in college, managers in place to run them for the most part. With me just, kind of in an advisory role.
That's a nice mix of the vision and the businesses, though. I know, obviously, Helios is your main business. I know you've mentioned, just tell people you're thinking of setting up a brewery in the local area. There's no real brewery there as such. It's a year or so's plan. And what I like about that for you is it's a very different type of business to what you're currently doing, and it's nice to have that mix and that change.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never run a retail business, never run a restaurant. I mean, I've worked in restaurants growing up and stuff, but yeah, it will be absolutely different. And who knows what that'll be. I think we've got some fun stuff that we can do. Merch, I think, would be a huge part of it, and also amazing beer is going to be a big part of it too.
I look forward to sampling some. It's funny because, like I mentioned to you previously, my partner, girlfriend Gabby, she's in the middle of setting up a new gin distillery here in the UK. And they're although they keep doing their tasting sessions, their market research as they call it, they're getting pretty close now. I tasted a couple of gins that they produced yesterday, and I have to say, and I tell her how it is. Some of the ones they produced, I'm not a fan of. Its palate's a very different thing to each individual thing. But yeah, it's interesting, and the idea of running a brewery is pretty cool, man. So, wrapping up, we've covered a lot in a relatively short space of time. And the last question really is for people listening that want that motivation to break out themselves. For somebody like yourself that's been doing it for years, what would you say to people that are thinking of going out on their own, that's the most satisfying part for you about being an entrepreneur?
So, and that answer is probably different for you than it would be for me.
Yeah, but it's about you.
So the most satisfying part for me is I steer the ship. I get to do exactly what I want to do every day. For the most part, yeah, there's admin. I hate accounting. I absolutely love accounting. There's stuff to run the business that I do not like doing. It just comes with the territory. You got to do it. But having that choice, I'm not feeling, awesome today. I'm going to take 30 minutes, go, shoot a, soccer ball or whatever to clear my head. I get to choose where I work, how I work, what I'm doing, doing interviews like this, whatever. I'm not waking up at 6:45, driving an hour and a half down to Washington, D.C. so I could, work in an office with, 150 strangers just to drive an hour and a half home, see my kids for 10 minutes and go to sleep. That is not for me. So this life is, that's probably my favorite part.
It's funny because like the ultimate failure for me would be having to get a job. And I hate the idea. The last time I had a job was 30 years ago in a record store. It lasted 3 months. I have changed my view on jobs depending on people's situation. I think young people setting out, like the closest thing that I know of that you ever had to in adulthood was a job was working with me. But it was far from a regular type of thing. It wasn't 9 to 5, go to the office, So what I'm trying to say is I have actually slightly changed my opinions on, depending on people's situations and definitely younger people, the idea of, like, I have been quoted as saying, go out and become an entrepreneur and forget the idea of a job. I think that depends on the industry you want to get into, where people are at their time of life. Certainly, somebody in their late teens, early 20s wanting to get into a specific entrepreneurial field, I think there is a value in, depending on what field it is, going and working in an industry first. So I have changed my mind slightly, especially I think as things change so much. I think the experience you get from working in a job within the fields you want to branch out into yourself is potentially a valid one, depending. For me, it doesn't matter whether it's good times, hard times. It is about the freedom. The harsh reality is, as an entrepreneur, you probably end up working far more than you would sometimes than you would if you had a regular job, hours-wise. But it's also that ability to, like you said, steer your own ship, whether that ship's going through very calm waters or very choppy gales. You're in charge of steering the ship. And that's the reality for me as well. So All right, mate. So wrapping up, where can people find out more about you, Helios Payments? Where do you want to point people to that are interested to find out more about you, mate?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can find other interviews with me online and stuff I've written. But yes, Helios Payments, HELIOS Payments plural.com. That is my business, my home online. So that would be where you can go to check me out.
Cool. Well, listen, mate, thank you for becoming one of the first guests ever of Get Real. It means a lot to me that you've wanted, I think you said you wanted to be a part of it, but whatever. It means a lot. And thank you for sharing everything that you have with the listeners and the viewers. And yeah, let's see each other down in the Bahamas soon. Thanks again, mate.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark.
You've been listening to the Get Real podcast with Mark Lyford. Being an entrepreneur isn't all glitz and glamour. Entrepreneurs are some of the most hard-working people in the world. And within entrepreneurship, there's life, mental health, business, ups and downs. And that's why we exist. Our passion is to talk about all of it with no BS. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. Find Mark on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube at Mark Lyford. And be sure to hit the website, realetrepreneur.com. From there, get his book. You won't be disappointed. See you next time on Get Real.